Hello, everyone. Christopher Goins. I am the Chief Equity Officer at TFA Chicago and the My Brother's Keeper Impact Community Leader for Chicago in partnership with the Obama Foundation.
My name is Tommy Collins. I am the Social Innovation and Strategy Fellow for My Brother's Keeper and Thrive, and it's a pleasure to have you all here tonight.
I'm a TFA Chicago alum. I taught middle school math, and I think it was in that experience that really set me on the path that I'm on today, which was just the realization that there were all of these conditions and factors outside of my students' lives that were mitigating their potential just to show up as kids. I feel like in my day-to-day work, I get the chance to mirror and live into a role that allows me to hopefully influence those conditions that I mentioned at the start. So I feel really privileged and lucky to be in a space with all of you this evening.
One of the common bonds I'm inferring a lot of us have on this call is we're Black and brown men, Asian men, and the reality is the brilliance of who we are wasn't always seen in the experiences that we had going through school. And the reality is we know that that's the case for a lot of our kids, and we know that it's more than just a school thing. We know that it's a systemic thing, and we know that it spans well beyond the classroom.
I taught in the first early childhood cohort that TFA had in Chicago. So I've now been really building, developing programs for children and youth. And most importantly, I think of all, is for families and really understanding and appreciating the critical role that communities need to play in supporting families if we're going to change outcomes for kids.
Now I'm in the role of being the founding director of equity, inclusion, and diversity for Noble. My job is really around creating equitable spaces for everyone that we serve at Noble and figuring out how to bring in our community, really give voice from the people so that we can do this the right way and build schools that we're proud of.
I come to this role, I come to this work from a lifelong commitment to public service. The proximate effect of the work that I do is about diversifying the CPS teacher workforce, right? How do we make sure that our teachers look like our kids, look like our families, look like our neighborhoods? My vision is really rethinking what do opportunities look like for people who look like us? What do opportunities look like for the young men and women in the communities that we serve?
And I'm having a real moment of here are the people you pass the baton to at some point in this work. I'm really humbled and grateful to see men of color in this space. No matter where you're situated in your school, no matter where you're situated in the work that you want to do, the vision that you have for yourself and the impact that you want to have can still exist. I jumped through the ranks very quickly, all because I had a vision. And I hope that what we are displaying to you is a clear sign that you are already enough and that what you want to do and what you want to become, that can still happen for you right now. I thought I would be in a different place and then I ended up where I needed to be.
I have always been drawn to mission-driven organizations, so it has been easy for me to find like-minded individuals to sort of think about and support and align with, and I'm just feel privileged to be in company with you all tonight to talk a little bit more about what that looks like, and hopefully we can come up with some good ideas that we can start acting on together.
Want to again thank our panelists for joining us today, sharing your experiences, your background.
In this next component of this event, gentlemen, brothers, we are deliberately listening to you. I do believe that perspective is a gift.
So part of this design session is really about reflection, but then reimagining what education can be for current male educators of color and those to come.
So for me, I've written about a lot of community absences in my own personal life, absence of immediate parental figures and absence of help because of a lack of formal education, which, reflecting broadly, a lot of people are put into that situation, especially as men and boys of color in the education system.
I think part of what allows me to have such a great impact as an educator is that personal connection we make when we're in person. Before COVID, I think that was, one of my strengths was making sure that, I could see students, be close to them, make those connections, check on them in between classes. And now, since everything is remote, but the lack of that physical structure is, I think, hindering a lot of our students and specifically a lot of our, boys and young men of color.
We're in the middle of a pandemic. We have to think about the social emotional needs of our kids. We have to think about healing. This is a very traumatic experience for a lot of our youth. The summer was very traumatic. So that's been really hard for me to watch, to see. I saw this opportunity to reimagine what education could look like, especially for Black and brown youth in our city. And to not see that happen is very frustrating, to say the least.
The idea of who would I be as an instructor without the expectations of my school constraining me?
I'm hearing so much life being given to let's think outside the box. Let's make it more kid-centered. Let's do more. This conversation needs to shift more to that. These are who we're teaching. When are we going to start talking about the things that actually do help? And focus less on trying to reinforce white supremacist ideals and mindsets and ways of doing. And I think once we do that, everyone will be liberated in so many ways.
This space can be incredibly stressful because we are usually the only people that look like us in the room. And so I would encourage you all to connect with your brothers and your partners out there to build that affinity space. And that's why we're here today. While 5 years ago, these types of conversations were not happening, but because of the current conditions and the narrative that exists now, we are seeing the needle move. And it takes all of us to do our part. That's why we wanted to pull together this panel so you can see a diverse perspective, diverse experiences. You can see your likeness in all of us. And we also want to have this conversation because we're going to be passing the baton to you all. We want to be a space where we can inspire, and we are my brother's keeper. That's exactly what we are.